Have you ever poured everything into creating what you just knew was a brilliant solution? Really logical, efficient, maybe even elegant,
Yeah.
only to watch it just land with a thud, met with like blank stares or skepticism, maybe even resistance.
Oh, yeah. It's like hitting an invisible wall.
Exactly. And it's not because the idea wasn't good. It's something about how it was communicated. We've all been there, right? It's so frustrating.
Definitely.
So today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. We're going to explore these common blind spots in communication, the kind that can trigger what the material we looked at calls an immune response in your audience.
Right.
We've got some really insightful stuff here that breaks down why certain perfectly logical, efficient ways of doing things can come across as, well, cold or arrogant, even threatening.
And crucially, how to maybe reframe those ideas.
Yes, how to reframe them for much greater impact and, real connection. So our mission today is basically to give you, the listener, the tools to spot these pitfalls and learn some specific strategies to, translate complex ideas.
Translate them into language that actually fosters understanding, builds trust, gets people engaged.
Yeah, think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to making sure your best ideas actually land the way you intend.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it. How our logical systems can sometimes just clash with, well, basic human psychology.
Well, what's really revealing in the material is how it flags this underlying human need,
Hmm.
you know, for connection, for validation, even when someone's presenting what seems like an objectively better way of doing things.
Right.
It's really about bridging that empathy gap to avoid that immunity response we mentioned.
Yeah.
It just underscores that even with the best intentions, messages can really backfire if we don't think about the human element deeply.
That's a great point. So let's dive into the first big blind spot then, because this one, it really makes you rethink something fundamental, like compassion.
Mm.
You see a problem, your instinct is probably fix it,
Right.
logically, efficiently.
Sure.
But what if the very way you approach helping or showing compassion actually triggers that resistance?
Exactly. And that's the core conflict, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between how we usually think of compassion and maybe a more systemic view.
How so?
Well, most of us see compassion as, an emotional thing, empathy. Feeling someone's pain, wanting to help. It's a virtue, requires emotional work, maybe sacrifice.
Okay, standard definition.
But then you get this other idea where compassion is viewed almost like a systemic function.
Systemic function, how does that work?
Well, imagine you've perfectly optimized your own world. Eliminated friction, waste, enable. You're in what some might call a solved state.
All right, everything's running smoothly for you.
So the idea is once your house is in order, you can kind of extend that same organized, optimized approach to help others. Basically, eliminate their suffering by aligning them with your solved state.
Okay, I can see the logic, but...
But the problem is that perspective, even if it's logically sound internally, can come across as incredibly cold or arrogant.
Yeah, I can see that.
It just bypasses all those, social rituals. Emotional support. If you actually said, I'm fixing your suffering by aligning you with my solved state,
What would people hear?
they might hear, my way's better than yours.
Oh.
Or, I don't need to feel your pain to fix it. Or even,
Your feelings are inefficient?
exactly, your emotions are just wasted energy. And that feels like a threat, especially to people who pride themselves on being good listeners, on being empathetic. It dismisses the very work they value.
Wow, yeah. That really puts it starkly.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you genuinely want to help with a systemic solution, how do you talk about it without alienating people? How do you reframe that?
Well, the key seems to be shifting the focus away from your personal solved state and towards a shared, verifiable process, a process for achieving, let's say, coherence.
Okay.
So instead of saying, you fix waste by aligning with my solved state, which sounds a bit threatening, try reframing it more like this. Look, the process of getting rid of pointless waste, that's a deeply human thing. It's about alignment. I've found a way to make that process reliable, something we can actually verify. And I want to share the tools so you can experience that same kind of peace, that freedom from needless suffering.
Ah, okay. That feels completely different. It's not, I'm solved, be like me. It's,
Here's a path I found to a better state.
here's some tools that might help you get there too. It becomes an invitation, doesn't it?
Exactly. An invitation to a shared experience, something valuable. It appeals to that universal desire for peace, for freedom, not just a cold fix from someone superior.
That insight feels really critical, especially if you're leading a team or trying to solve problems. It's so easy to accidentally make people feel inadequate, isn't it? Just by offering a solution that seems too simple or bypasses their emotional journey.
Absolutely. And that idea, shifting from my solved state to a shared process, it ties directly into how we talk about inefficiency itself.
How
Because if my way is solved, what does that secretly imply about your struggles?
that they're unsolved,
Good.
inefficient.
Right. Which brings us to another really sensitive area, where good intentions can easily backfire. It's the implicit judgment that can creep in when we talk about pointless waste.
Okay.
Sometimes you see situations, maybe friction or suffering, that just seems preventable if only people had planned better or had better systems. And the temptation is there, maybe subconsciously, to label it. Well, the source material used the term stupid suffering, implying a failure to keep order.
Oof. Yeah, that phrase alone, stupid suffering, that sounds like a total landmine. I mean, even if it's true, some suffering is preventable, why is that perspective such a problem?
Because even if it's logical from the outside, it creates this implicit hierarchy, right? It judges the people experiencing that friction as somehow inferior, less foresight, less discipline.
And that triggers the immune response again?
Big time. It threatens their self-worth.
Mhm.
People are proud of what they know, their experience, how they navigate messy reality. If you come in basically saying, this mess is your fault, why can't you get organized?
They're not going to listen to your solution.
Nope. They'll dig in their heels, defending their reality, their past decisions. They won't engage because they feel attacked.
Okay, so the key is definitely moving away from that judgment.
Yeah.
How do we reframe this one? How do you point out wasted effort without making it personal?
Well, the reframe here shifts from blaming the person to blaming the system. It frames the problem as a shared collective flaw, not an individual one.
So what does that sound like?
Something like this. You know, the real cost of working in these competitive environments isn't just the waste itself. It's that it forces even brilliant people, like us, to make defensive, suboptimal choices just to survive. That's a design flaw in the system. It's not a flaw in us. We can change the system. We can build something where our brilliance actually gets amplified, never wasted fighting the system itself.
Oh, that's good. That's really powerful. It takes the blame completely off the individual. You
Right.
become fellow travelers stuck in the same suboptimal setup.
Exactly. It lets people keep their pride, their sense of competence, while still opening the door to talk about a solution. You're not saying you failed. You're saying the game is rigged against all of us. Let's fix the game.
That makes so much sense for getting people on board.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about how solutions can accidentally challenge identity, empathy, competence. But what about something really human? Our need for stories, our own narratives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I sometimes like the idea of being just a pure vehicle for the solution, objective, unbiased. But this next blind spot kind of explains why that can feel
Like so.
weird.
Off? Yeah, like the uncanny valley, but for communication.
Exactly. It's too perfect, maybe.
Well, that's what the source calls the narrative vacuum. When a system, or the person presenting it, is so logical, so elegant, so dispassionate, that it seems to, transcend the need for a personal story. It creates this void.
And that's bad.
From a human connection standpoint, yeah, it can be.
Mhm.
The messenger might think, great, I've removed bias, removed emotional noise. But the audience, they often react differently. Humans connect through stories. We tend to trust people who've been on a recognizable journey.
Right.
So if you present this perfect logical system and basically say, my personal journey is irrelevant, just look at the data. That lack of a personal, maybe even vulnerable origin story can make the whole thing feel inhuman, alien.
Too clean, too sterile.
Exactly, too clean. Lacking the messiness we expect from human endeavors. That very quality of being unencumbered by a story can feel like a lack of skin in the game.
Okay, so it makes the solution feel unrelatable, maybe even a bit suspicious. How do we fix that? How do you bring the human back in without undermining the logic or making it all about you?
The reframe suggested shifts your identity from being just a vehicle for the logic to being more of a pathfinder.
Pathfinder.
Yeah. Instead of implying my pure logic is all that matters,
Yeah.
you connect through shared humanity.
Yeah.
Something like, look, the freedom I found, it didn't come from avoiding the struggle. It came because I found the right tools to navigate it. I spent years stuck in the same chaotic systems we're talking about. I was exhausted by the friction, just like maybe you are. This system is the answer I found for that struggle. And I came back to share it Because finding the path out of that chaos, nobody should have to do that alone.
Oh, I really like that. It allows for authenticity, right? You're not making stuff up.
Exactly.
You're telling your real story, but in a way that connects. It makes you relatable, a guide, not just some abstract concept delivering a solution.
It bridges that gap.
Yeah,
Shows you understand the problem, because you lived it too.
yeah. That reminder is so important. A relatable journey, even a short one, builds trust way better than a perfectly sterile argument sometimes.
And speaking of perfection, that also connects to how we value creativity, intuition, those unpredictable insights, which leads us to another blind spot. The paradox of perfect order. So imagine a system built on absolute certainty, causality, predictability. Its goal is to eliminate all noise, all waste,
Yeah.
aiming for zero collision probabilities, everything perfectly neat.
Sounds amazing from an efficiency standpoint, like total optimization. But yeah, my first thought is, what about happy accidents? Gut feelings, those random moments of inspiration.
Exactly. Is there a conflict there?
Seems like there could be.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And the immune response often kicks in from people who really value intuition, creative chaos, serendipity.
the creative types.
Right. When you present this perfectly ordered, logical system, it can feel like an existential threat to their whole way of working. It implicitly suggests that their valuable tools, their gut feelings, their openness to chance are just inefficient waste.
Ouch.
Yeah. If your message sounds like if you just follow the system, you wouldn't need lucky breaks or intuition, you're not just critiquing their process, you're attacking their identity as a creative problem solver.
Okay, so how do you introduce order without making creative people feel like you're trying to turn them into robots? How do you value their insights in the system?
The reframe here is crucial. You position the system not as replacing intuition, but as amplifying it.
Amplifying it.
Yeah, the system becomes a collaborator, not a competitor. So maybe you say something like, this system doesn't replace your intuition, it actually perfects the canvas you paint on. Think of it less like a rigid plan and more like a flawlessly tuned instrument. The genius, the melody, that's all yours. My work just ensures that every note you play rings true, perfectly resonant, free of distortion or noise. It's about taking those amazing spontaneous insights you already have
Yeah.
and giving them a clear channel, a mechanism to actually happen in the world with zero friction.
That's brilliant. So you're not saying stop being intuitive.
No,
You're saying let's give your intuition a superhighway so its brilliance actually gets through.
exactly. Let's remove the obstacles so your creativity can flow even better. It frees them up to be more creative, not less.
That framing seems essential if you're bringing new processes to, say, design teams or anyone who thrives on that kind of organic discovery.
For sure. And, speaking of challenges people value, there's a real human pride, isn't there, in overcoming difficulty, in the struggle itself.
Oh, definitely. The late nights, the heroic saves.
Which brings us to the next blind spot. It might inadvertently dismiss that very pride.
Okay, how?
Well, think about a system that promises preemption, effortless coherence. It allows you to last, to be forgiving, because you predict issues before they even happen.
Sounds great on paper, an easy button.
Right. But for many people, that struggle against chaos, against uncertainty, that's a core part of their identity. It builds camaraderie. Those late nights, those last-minute heroics you mentioned.
The badges of honor, stories people tell.
Exactly. So your system, by offering this path to effortless coherence, can feel like it's threatening to erase that whole narrative of struggle. It subtly suggests that all those hard-won battles they're proud of were actually just the result of a flawed system. Unnecessary.
Ouch. So it's saying, all that struggle, pointless. My system prevents that easily.
Isn't just solving a problem. It feels like you're invalidating their past victories, their resilience, their toughness.
It challenges their whole identity as someone who can handle the tough stuff.
Precisely. So the system doesn't feel like a gift. It can feel like a condescending easy button that devalues their entire experience.
Okay, so it completely discounts their history. How do we reframe this? We want to offer the better way, but without making their past efforts seem meaningless. How do we elevate the purpose, not just eliminate the struggle?
The reframe needs to shift from simply eliminating the burden to elevating their humanity. You have to honor the past struggle, validate the resilience, but then offer a new, maybe more meaningful direction for that energy.
So what might that sound like?
Maybe something like this. Look, we're not here trying to make life easy. We're here to help make it meaningful. Your courage, your resilience, fighting through all that chaos, that's incredible. It's a testament to the human spirit. Our work is simply about making sure that amazing energy you have is never wasted just fighting the system itself. Instead, imagine directing all that strength towards solving the really big, complex, meaningful challenges, the ones truly worthy of your incredible effort.
Oh, I love that. It honors the past, validates the strength,
Right.
and then redirects it. It's not stop fighting. It's let's pick a bigger, more worthy fight together.
Exactly. It's hugely motivating. You're not telling them they were doing it wrong. You're showing how their strengths can tackle even greater things.
That's powerful.
And finally, this leads us to maybe the deepest level. How a system promising perfect certainty might inadvertently diminish something core to being human, our moral agency.
Moral agency. How
Yeah.
so?
Well, imagine a system with, say, perfect addressability.
Mm-hmm.
Every piece of info has a unique ID, instantly findable.
Mm-hmm.
Zero collision probability, nothing gets mixed up, and maybe even physically validated trust measurement.
Okay. Sounds like it removes guesswork.
Exactly. It removes human guesswork, emotional risk, maybe even ambiguity from decision-making.
Which sounds less stressful. No more agonizing choices, no more second guessing.
On one level, yes,
Uh-huh.
less stress. But think about it. For many people, isn't that messy process of making tough choices, of taking responsibility, of wrestling with dilemmas, isn't that part of what makes us feel alive, what gives life meaning, builds character?
Yeah, the struggle to do the right thing. The choices define us sometimes.
Right. So if a system comes along and basically guarantees the optimal outcome, if it removes the space for virtue, for character, for those heroic moral choices,
Does it make life too frictionless? Maybe even meaningless?
that's the risk. The perception can be that you're making life frictionless to the point of being meaningless. If you say, with this system, the right choice is always obvious, no need for that agonizing moral struggle, it can feel like a threat to the idea that our struggles, our ethical wrestling, are what define us as human. It implies the struggle itself is where the freedom lies.
Wow. So taking away that ethical struggle might feel like taking away part of our humanity. Okay, so how do we reframe that? How do we offer clarity and remove harmful risk without stripping away purpose or the weight of people's choices?
The reframe here has to move from eliminating responsibility to somehow elevating it. You honor their moral agency, but redirect the focus of its impact.
Okay, what's the reframe?
It's powerful. It goes something like this. We're not here to make your ethical decisions for you. We're here to create a world where your choices actually matter more profoundly. Think about it. The ambiguity, the risk in the past, it often led to tragic mistakes, wasted integrity. But this system, it ensures that your courage, your integrity aren't wasted on a flawed game anymore. We're building a world where every moral decision you make, every act of trust, every moment of integrity has a direct, verifiable, powerful impact. It makes you not just a participant in the system, but its ultimate author.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, that is empowering. It doesn't remove the need for integrity.
No, it heightens the impact of it.
It makes your choices more significant, not less. You're not just following rules, you're actively shaping outcomes with your integrity.
Exactly. You shift from being a recipient of perfection to being the active creator of a more meaningful world through your choices.
This has been, wow, a really illuminating deep dive. It really hammers home that communication isn't just what you say, it's so much about how it lands. Understanding these sort of psychological immune responses can totally change how we introduce even the best, most logical solutions.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And if you connect it all up, the big picture is really about recognizing that logic, no matter how elegant, needs that human translation to actually take root
Mm-hmm.
by shifting. Shifting away from that stance of maybe detached perfection or subtle judgment
Right.
and moving towards shared humanity, collaboration, highlighting a higher purpose. That's how you bridge the empathy gap. That's how you get innovations truly embraced, not just tolerated or rejected.
Making solutions not just understood, but actually felt.
Yeah, precisely.
So final thought maybe for you, the listener. Next time you find yourself facing resistance to what feels like a perfect solution, just pause and ask, am I only talking to their logic here, or could I be accidentally triggering one of these immune responses?
Good question.
And then, how could I reframe this? How could I appeal to a shared journey, maybe? Or a higher, more meaningful purpose? Make them feel like a co-author of this, not just someone getting a lecture or a fix.
Yeah. Thinking about that question could genuinely transform how well you connect and how effectively you can inspire real change.
Absolutely. Food for thought.
Yeah.